No sudden move. Like, I know why the movie happened. I just don't think the movie should have happened. I don't know if that makes sense. But before I continue, consider this your spoiler warning because I will be saying spoilerish things about this movie. If you have not yet seen this movie is set in a backdrop of the 1950s and apparently during a car automobile war when they were all, kind of acting mobbish, if you will. And this movie definitely has a mobster heist kind of movie. And it's not a true story, even though it's saying that it is a true story, but it's just set on, I think, an antitrust suit that was given to GM, Ford, Chrysler, these big time automobile dealerships back in the 1950s. But it's completely made up. So there is, at the end of the movie, you feel like you invested in a fantasy, I guess. Now, this movie is really well shot. I will give it that. It has a definite Quentin Tarantino movie or feel to it, even though it's not a Tarantino movie. But it definitely has that feel with the music, the shots that it's trying to portray, especially from the bottom to the top. It's just really weird, awkward shots that it portrays. And this movie is way too long. It's almost 2 hours long. This movie could have been an hour and 30 minutes, and it would have been perfect as far as the pacing. So it feels very, very long. Now, given the cast, this movie should be when you read it, like, how when you see a lineup and you're like, wow, that's a championship lineup, right? You got Don Cheadle, you got Del Toro, you have David Harbour, you have Matt Damon, you have John Hamm, and with those names, you're like, oh, that's gonna be just a dope movie. But it was okay. I mean, their acting was great. Don't get me wrong, the acting was superb, and I enjoyed the acting, though. Don Cheadle's accent kept on going away and coming back. Now, it's not noticeable. He does a really good job with having that raspy voice like this. But there's a section in the beginning, really, and you could tell he changes to his normal voice when he tells him to give him the keys. And it's his normal voice, not his raspy voice. And he does it for a couple other times. But you notice it because he's really trying to talk like this. Really hard thing like this, but he lets it go when he changes over to his normal voice. It just takes you out of the story. How anybody? I mean, maybe they didn't want to reshoot because obviously when in production shit gets missed or just kind of looked the other way. Saying they won't really notice, and if they do, it won't be. It doesn't take away from the storyline. So they thought it would, but his accent or his voice in this movie is too distinct from his regular voice. So when he doesn't hold it, it does take you out of the movie. But so it was great. The one thing also that kept on taking me away, and I'm not shaming, I'm sure there's a story behind why he is the way he is, but Brendan Fraser's body, he is so overweight. And again, I'm not fat shaming, but when you see Brendan Fraser, you go to The Mummy, you go into, I think it was George of the Jungle or whatever that was, Tarzan, whatever he played back in the 90s when he was super fit. You know what I mean? And even in the Mummy, he was lean, he was thin, he was muscular. And you have that imprinted in your mind. So when you see him and he's overweight like this, it just takes you out. Am I the only one? Because I feel like that's where I was like, God, he really let himself go. And I think the movie also knew that, the director and the producers, they knew that because he wasn't on screen for a very long time. And if he was, it was no more than like 20 seconds, and they took him away from the camera because it just took you out too much. And that's sad, in a way. And I know that's our fault as the general public, that we just associate him with such a fit, in tune body. And when we see him not in shape and how he is in this movie, and I said overweight, they just call it what it is. And I'm not fat shaming. If you're happy with your weight and if you're happy the way you look, hey, more power to you. But in this instance, for an actor, it just takes you off. The same way that if you would see Brad Pitt gain like 100 pounds of weight, you would know it was Brad Pitt, but it would just take you off from what you already known from Troy, from the Fight Club, from how he kept himself in shape, and you'll be like, wow, like George Clooney going bald. You can't control those things, but bald George Clooney is a different George Clooney. So it just takes you off for just a second when he's on the screen. There's nothing to do with him, but um, it just takes you out of the story. But basically, this is a okay movie. At the end, it's funny because it's just a bunch of double crosses. Like once one double crosses, someone else double crosses, then you find out there's a double cross to the double cross, and there's a bigger double cross until the end. There's an ultimate double cross. So it's funny when the ending happens. You're like, get the hell out of here. So many double crosses. No one trusts each other. And I guess this was what happened in the 1950s. I don't know. I mean, it's an enjoyable film, but there is laws. There's a lot of, with these, there's no special effects. There's none of that crazy, Hollywood magic to this. So you expect to be a lot of dialogue, but it was just too much at times. If it would have been, like I said, a little bit shorter, I think it would have hit better. But so for me, this movie was a C plus because I did enjoy the acting. I did enjoy the unique story that it was trying to tell, even though it was completely fake and made up. And they took a little bit of history and blew it all up to make this intricate story. But I could appreciate it, and the uniqueness of this movie, I think, is what saved the movie. It's kind of different from what we're seeing Hollywood put out, so I could appreciate that. But no more than a C plus for me. But I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. What did you think about this movie? Do you think a C plus rating is too low? Would you have rated a little bit higher? I mean, I was close to giving it a B minus, but I didn't think it deserved it with just a lot of the miscues that it did have. Like I said, feeling too long, and I appreciate it, but if you're gonna say it's based on a true story at the end when you run those credits, there should be a little bit more than just like, oh, it was set on the backdrop of this and we're gonna take this and then just roll with it. Same thing with what I found with the Conjuring movie that was just released. Same thing, it was just a small news clipping, but they ran with it and made this whole demon aspect of it. I appreciate the effort, but at the end of the day, for me, just a C plus. But anyways, those are just my thoughts. I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments, and like always, that's a wrap.